Hi, and welcome to another Scientology Outside of the Church podcast. It's brought to you by ao-gp.org and the College of Independent Scientology.com, our online course room and social platform for AOGP. I'm here with Arthur Mudakis, and we are going to do season 10, episode 26, 145, I believe, 145th podcast, fast approaching 150.
It's pretty
Today we're going to
impressive.
talk. What's that?
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. It's some
Yeah,
ridiculous number of hours too, as far as the total. I forget what it is, but
yeah.
it's getting up there. We're going to talk about present time problems and sudden shifts of attention. This is going to be an interesting one, I think, regarding these two things. So this is based off of the St. Hill Special Briefing Course lecture 47 back in 1961, in August of 1961, where LRH is talking about present time problems and rudiments and how they stop a PC from having reads because of problems. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about what this has to do with our current environment and digital information and what it does to people and how you can resolve it. What do you think of that, Arthur?
Yeah, I think that's good because it's very necessary to look at these things a little more seriously, I believe. And I think also with open eyes as well, in a sense, because I think it's quite easy to slip into just normality and these present time problems are running in the background and not recognize that there is something going on for you, and then you're struggling to wonder why you're not progressing. But then this culture also makes it so comfortable, and there's just so many things going on in the background that we just overlook, and that's what I mean by you know having a look at things with your eyes open in a sense. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
talking conspiracy, but actually, what's actually going on in your world and your immediate surrounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, what is a problem? The problem is a postulate, counter postulate with some mass in the middle of it. And that problem sticks when you have an unknownness about that problem, what's unknown. And this is the really interesting aspect of it, is that if it's unknown, how do you know about it? How do you get the information, especially if you're getting the information from what may or may not be a reliable source? And we've talked about this in other podcasts, with the media and things like that. But there's just so many different, disparate sources of unknownness where if you didn't have any input from other places, you'd have a lot less unknownness.
Mm,
If you were out in the woods by yourself, camping or
yeah.
something like that, you have a lot less unknownnesses because what's there is there instead of what you're being told, but you don't have all of the information. There's an unknownness to it.
Well, I don't know if you've heard here in Australia, there's a big cyclone that was predicted to come up the north,
Yeah.
and they did full lockdown measures like they did at COVID. But what was interesting, I found, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, this is just my own perspective towards it. But normally when they do cyclones here in Australia, they use women's names,
Hmm.
whereas this time they used a man's name, which I thought
Hmm.
was really interesting when they named it, and it was out in the ocean somewhere. And so everybody just went crazy, went full lockdown. And the funny part is the north part of Australia gets, cyclones not regularly, but it happens regular enough to say, all right, some preparation should be needed. And so far, nothing's happened. A lot of rainfall, don't get me wrong,
Hmm.
but as far as the cyclone itself ripping through, so people have gone bonkers just buying in preparation for a disaster. And so they should.
Mm,
But at the same time, yeah, nothing.
right. Well, you know,
So the present time problem was by the word. It wasn't something that actually occurred. It
right.
was the intention and a future projection that created a present time problem.
Yeah. Problem, reaction, solution. You give them a problem and say, hey, it's this, and they're like, oh my God,
Yep.
we gotta do this, we gotta do that, say it's gonna be the worst thing ever. And it seems to me, uh, especially with weather related things, that it's been a wag the dog kind of a thing where they started naming storms in the United States winter storms. And usually they're female names, but sometimes like
Yep.
hurricanes, they do them alphabetically, and they can be a man or a woman's name. But
Yep.
it's interesting that these things. It's almost like a holiday, Christmas or something like that. To get people to go out and spend more money is the way that it seems. But that's
Yes. Yep.
it's that unknownness. That's what's capitalized off of, is that unknownness that creates that problem.
Hmm.
What is not known about it? Oh my God, oh my God. And you got this counter intention. Now, this comes down to what LRH was talking about what causes pain. He says what causes pain is if somebody comes up and pokes you in the back with a pin while you're looking in the other direction, there's this sudden shift of attention because your
Mm.
attention is on one thing, and there's this other thing that comes at you from another direction, and that causes pain because it was unpredicted. And so when you look at problems and sudden shifts of attention, most problems manifest in a sudden shift of attention. It's not like it's on the calendar. Oh, the transmission's going to go out, or the battery died, alternator's out, or anything. There's no prediction to these things, and without prediction, you have a sudden shift of attention that turns it into pain, and now you have a problem from an unknown quarter.
Mm. Hmm.
And once you
Yep.
find out the reason for the problem, the alternator, the battery, or whatever, now the correct why opens the door to a handling or a solution.
Yep. Yep.
So that's where it's interesting, where you can get the information. You don't have a problem for as long if you understand what the source of it is. Now, this comes to the grade chart as
Mm.
well, as to what the source of things are. Roundabout OT3, where you start getting down to being able to find accurate source instead of being knocked around by your case, it saying this or that, or dubbing in all these things, the voices in your head telling you what things are or whatever, that get in the way of you actually finding the right solution.
Yep.
So
Mm.
in order to handle a problem, you have to look at, okay, what are the vectors, what are the angles of what's coming in, what the problem is. So if you sit down, you look at it and go, okay, well, this coming from this, it's coming from this, it's coming from this, or it's just coming from this particular thing. What are the unknownnesses about that? And you can write
Mm.
them down and go, okay, these are things I don't know about this. Okay, how can I find out? Sometimes you can't find out,
Okay.
but it
Okay.
helps
Well,
handle
well,
the
but even
sudden
if you
shifts.
can't find out, at least you know you can't find out. So that's still a knowingness there, isn't it?
It,
If there's
it, it
something you can't find out.
yeah, we've talked about that a lot. There's certain things you're never going to know,
Mm.
but the things you're never going to know don't supersede the phenomena of the human mind.
Sure.
You can say, well, this happened because of this particular overt or this particular motivator or whatever, and you don't have the actual data, but you do have the phenomena itself to explain it. And sometimes that's all you're going to get. Some
Yep. Yep.
some answers aren't attainable for one reason or another. But at least that
Yep. Yep.
handles the sudden shift of attention when you understand the manifestation and the phenomena.
Yep. Yep.
So you can at least have that. And that's the thing is it may not be 100% solace on the whole thing, but you at least understand the mechanisms of it. And the only way to clean yourself up on it is to handle your, what your own responsibility is in the area and look at it and go, okay, I've got this much of the information, and that handles the sudden shift of attention, especially when you get blindsided by something. You go, okay, was that a
Mm,
motivator? What was it? Was it something I created? Was I there? Was I communicating? That type of thing. So
sure, sure.
once you spot the sudden shift of attention, it should blow. Okay, when did that happen? And you can spot that. Oh, it was that. Okay, now we got that. Now we can look at the problem. Now we can look at the opposing postulates, and then you can dissect it there. Okay, what's the counter postulate, or what's the apparency of the counter postulate? And then look at your own, and then go, okay, you know, now you've got some understanding of maybe even could do a doubt condition too. You know, which which side here? What's the best side to be on? And you can unmuck it that way too. Another way to do it with a problem is problems of comparable magnitude. If you mock up problems greater than the problem that you have, it makes the problem that you have seem much, much smaller. So where you go, oh, okay, this is something I can handle. I can spot where it was that the shift of attention was. That makes it painful. And once you have that, then you have some sort of a solution, because a problem stops a person's OCA, their personality test, from improving if they have a problem or problems going on, because their rudiments are out.
Okay, so so from listening to the lecture, what was it about you wanting to talk about this one in particular? Like,
Well,
what was it that
the
sort of
you know this
struck you about it?
the sudden shift of attention that you see is that a lot of the things that are on people's minds, like you get in the car and you listen to the radio, and it's sudden shift of attention. The stock market is down 800 points. Sudden shift of attention.
Yeah,
President Trump says we can't rule out a recession, and the stock market plummets. There's this sudden shift of attention. And then the next day, 24 hours later, it's sudden shift of attention. 24 hours later, sudden shift of attention, in the news cycle type of a thing. And so people
yeah, yeah,
people are paralyzed by all of these unknownnesses, other than what they're being told, which more often than not isn't true, because it's a wag the dog type of a situation. Why a president would say we can't rule out a recession? That's the last thing you want to have a president say. you know because they want to. I
yeah,
mean, it's
yeah,
obvious, because they want a recession, because if there is a recession, well, then the people that have the wealthy, that have the money, can then go out and buy stuff at fire sale prices, because the demand is so far down, and now they own a larger percentage of real estate or businesses or whatever, because the value has gone down due to a recession. This is this shift of attention,
yeah.
and then you get the group
And
agreement
it's
on the shift of
interesting,
attention.
yeah, and the amount of reactiveness involved as well on decisions just based on what's being said, is incredible. But it's funny as well, because I got a mate of mine up in Queensland at the moment, and he's just watching everybody go mad. And he calls me in the mornings and he's like, "Oh, it's been raining a bit," but he's like, "Dude, everybody's just going crazy." He's like, "I've gone for a walk to the gym, and the gym's closed." And he goes, "I go to the beach for a swim, and I'm the only one on the beach."
Yeah.
Just things like that. But then also as well, like from my end personally, um, I can't handle the news anymore. And the only time I sort of listen to the news is when I'm working and I'm driving in my car. I'll have the radio on, and of course the news will come in, and I can't handle it. And the funny thing is, I've actually switched cars at the moment, and the radio's broken in the car I'm driving at the moment, and it's just complete silence. And the funny thing is, whether I hear it or not, nothing changes.
Hmm. Yeah,
Nothing changes.
nothing
You know,
changes.
everything still continues as it did. But the only thing that does change is my attitude when I hear certain things on the radio. Because I hear agendas getting pushed um, that I strongly disagree with. There's a lot of agendas being pushed that I really disagree with in the Western Australia, Western civilization,
Hmm.
and it just frustrates me. And so if I listen to the news, it makes me angry. Like the amount of times I've yelled at my radio, just shut the F up. Like
Yeah.
just the garbage that comes out of these people's mouths, I just think, are we this way? Are we really this below our moral code?
Hmm.
Like it's insane.
Hmm.
And then if I don't listen to it, I don't know, I'm just happy driving along. I'm
Hmm.
bored. Like I'm a lot more bored. I'm less entertained without the news, but oh man, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And so even just that, like just listening to it and my perspective towards themes that I hear on the news, it does get me. It makes me very reactive, you
Hmm.
know, and then it kind of caters for everyone. So it caters for me, people like me that really don't put much faith in the news. But then those that do put faith into the news, it makes it reactive for them as well. So they've pretty much taken both sides of the coin. So it doesn't matter which side of the fence you're on, you're going to be reactive no matter which way,
Hmm.
whether you agree to what you hear or whether you disagree with what you hear, you're still going to get a reaction from it. So now that we're discussing it, it's quite clever, really,
Yeah. Well,
really clever.
Ellerate says, it's not, in Dianetics in book one, he was saying, it's the sonic, the audio, that is ablative to the PC. And then later on, about 10 years later, he says it's not the audio so much as it is the force of an engram.
Mm,
But that's there. The force, and that's the suddenness, the sudden shift of attention. And that's, knocking a person off of something that they're doing or where they're going or, whatever vector it is. And when you have that force, in the news, COVID, 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 COVID,
yeah, yeah,
COVID,
yeah.
COVID, COVID,
Yep,
COVID,
yep.
it's that the Goebbels thing from the Nazi area was, the more often you repeat a lie, the more people
Mm,
believe it because there's this force
yep,
behind it.
yep,
So you get this sudden shift
yep.
of attention, which causes pain. Oh my God, there's a cyclone coming. We can't go outside. Cyclone, 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 cyclone. Or bring it down to the micro and people that you're around and what they're affected by, even if you don't listen to the radio and you see their behaviors. Maybe they mention something and they don't mention they heard it from some source. But I mean, as much as people look at their phones and you see them looking at their phones, I mean, there's just this immediate, it's like they're on an IV drip of information,
Yep, yep,
whether it's from their
yep.
friends who are being affected by this sudden shift of attention, and it's almost like there's this group agreement that this is going to be painful. This cyclone's going to be horrible. I mean, they were doing that with these hurricanes a few months ago in the U.S., bearing down
Mm,
on Tampa, Florida, blah, 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 blah. And it was a non event. It was a non event.
yep, yep.
They'd had worse hurricanes and nobody made a big deal of it. It was just, yep, yeah, it's another
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
hurricane,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But instead, it's you see this more and more and more in society how the shift of attention, it's not just a shift of attention, but it's so many sudden shifts of attention. The
Mm-hmm.
economy, the weather, the this, the that, boom, 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 boom. And this turns into a force, which gets people to a point of
Yep.
almost catatonia where the dangerous environment thing kicks in and it's, oh, I had this, interesting event happened after I left the gym. I walk 6 kilometers, 4.1 miles home from the gym every time I go to the gym. And I went in to get uh, I don't forget what it is, one of the big waters that I get from the grocery store from Woolworths. And I told the lady, I tapped on it and I said, this is my companion from my walk home to Walmart. And she goes, Walmart, almost like clutching her pearls. Walmart. It's like, yeah. And she was just, that's just dangerous. you know, and then you go, so where'd you get that datum? What, yeah, well, everybody
Mm-hmm.
knows that it's
Yeah, that's
dangerous
right.
out there. You're going to be walking in the dark.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah,
and and granted, it's South Africa, but it's the best side of town type of a thing. But I mean, there was just this immediate. I mean, there was a sudden shift of attention. You don't want to do that in capital letters.
yes,
You know,
yes, yeah,
and that's a sudden shift of attention. That's that manifestation where somebody has been fed this information and they're like, oh no, you can't do that. Do you know
yeah,
how
yeah,
dangerous
yeah,
that
yeah.
is? And so then you buy into it, type of a thing. And I didn't buy into it because I saw what was happening and nothing goes wrong. But it's that, again, that's reactivity. That's reactivity.
Yep, yep.
And the next time I go in, well, I'm glad you're still alive. I was worried about you,
Yeah,
really?
yeah,
Really?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's I
yeah.
get
We get
stuck
that
on that.
sort of thing here as well. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
in some
if
cases. Yeah,
I don't see him again, I'll know what happened. Wow.
yep, yep, yep.
So,
But then
that
that's on
happens
a
just in conversations.
yeah, and that's more on a macro level. Like that creates waves in a community. Like I haven't heard much about the Ukraine war. I haven't heard much about the Gaza, what's going on over there, but I'm hearing about this cyclone. And
Hmm.
then I'll hear about how Australia hates Donald Trump, and I'll hear about all these things that are kind of irrelevant versus what's actually relevant, which I find interesting as well.
Right.
You
What
know,
what
when the Ukraine war started, Australia boycotted Russian products.
hmm
You know what I mean? Like you'd go to a local pub and they'd stop selling vodka because they were protesting towards Russia.
hmm
You know, just all these real weird, crazy things. But since then, nothing. And that was what, a year ago? And it's still going. And that's the insane thing. But then that's all macro stuff. But then what about more micro stuff, like one actual problems in somebody's personal life,
hmm Yeah.
like actual real problems to the individual?
hmm Well,
You
it's
know,
that.
issues with their home, issues with abuse, issues with their own anxieties, issues with money, romance, all those kinds of things.
Hmm. Well, it's on the micro, it's still a sudden shift of attention. And the unknownness to that sudden shift of attention. What was that? Type of a thing.
Mm,
So, you have to look at it and go, okay, my postulate is to survive. Okay, so what is it that's preventing my survival? And that's a that's
mm,
a that's a force counterforce type of a thing. And you write down the counter forces and you go, okay, now here's the problem. Okay, so what do I do to resolve that supposed problem? If it's in an auditing session, oh, I left the iron on and it might burn the house down. Well, you need the PC to go home and turn off the iron so you can get on with the session. It's the same thing. You
mm-hmm,
have to look at the problems and handle them from the order of what is the most handleable. It's not just what's the biggest problem always, but it's what is the most handleable, because you can handle six handleable problems as if they were incomplete cycles of action, because they really are, and get those out of the
mm,
way. you'll find that you have a lot more ability and capability to handle these other problems instead of maybe tackling
Yeah.
the primary, the ogre underneath the bridge type of a thing first. Get some of those other little things out of the way, and it gives you an ability, just like it does in session, handling somebody's problem so that you can get the needle to read and get on with the session. It's the same thing. So you just have to look at
Yeah.
those things
Yeah.
that you can handle right now, because if you handle the little ones, you can then handle the big ones and get a lot more
Mm,
knownness into it based off of the other unknownnesses that you can address. Get the stuff known that you
sure.
can be known. So
Sure.
that allows you less opportunities for sudden shifts of attention as well, because instead of having six knives
Mm,
thrown at you, you only have one or two.
yeah. 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 And the interesting thing is, even with what you just said then, like one change to one present time problem can make an incredible impact on you. Um, and and I think sometimes as well we can get really overwhelmed, especially when we have multiple present time problems going on. Sometimes that can be too much to handle, and so a lot of people will just stop there because it's just too much. It's so overwhelming. They've
Mm-hmm.
got so many issues in their life going on, and so they'll just stop there.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, you resolve just one of those, just one, it'll lift you up an incredible amount. And then once
Yeah.
you achieve one, you're like, oh wow, like it was so easy to handle. I mean, of course, some things will be way more confronting, but the ones that you can handle, like I can't remember which book it was in where they talk about the life points. If you're running at 100 life points at your optimum, and then you've had so many present time problems occur, then you're only running off 40 points. And if you achieve just one of those things, now you're running at 41 points. So you've
Mm-hmm.
actually stepped up,
Right.
and in some cases, just that one problem could raise you up to 60.
Right.
You're already progressing in an upward direction just by doing just one. And the impact that actually has is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's quite interesting how it works. And then even sometimes, you might have so many overwhelming, and let's say your optimum is 100 points and you're down at 40, but sometimes just that one can bring you right up to like 90.
Sometimes, yeah,
And then,
because
yeah,
you're not stuck at that point with that problem. Now you have more mobility and a freedom to move around as a being up and down these problems and put more attention units on them. So you don't necessarily have to go after the first big one, but if you get two or three little ones, then you're going to have a lot more ability to handle the others easily. And that
and I
prevents
think I
sudden
think they're the
shifts of
wrong
attention.
words though, because we say it as little ones, right? But it's actually the wrong way to say it because they're big. They're all big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like we say them as little because the more achievable ones and more immediately achievable, but they're all big. They
Mm-hmm.
all weigh. They all have a weight about them. Even the little ones.
Yeah.
And it's funny how we say it like that. Oh, you handle your little problems, but they're not little because otherwise they wouldn't be there. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
It's
And
so funny how we express it.
yeah, and when you don't look at it, the bigger it seems to be, because
Yeah,
it's
100%.
uninspected. As soon as you start inspecting
Yeah.
it reduces in size. All of a sudden, you kind of go, ah, okay,
Yes. Yeah.
look at it, which is,
Yeah.
that's what an auditing process is. Look at it, look at it, look at it, reinspect, reinspect, and you go,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe it isn't what I was making it, because that's the thing. That's the problem me feeling about it is look at it, look at it, look at it. Yeah, it's hard to look at. Look at it, look at it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
as hard to look at, but the more you do that, and then you go, okay, okay, here's a solution. Now all of a sudden,
Yes.
it doesn't have that bigness about it.
That's right. Yeah. And I
And
think
that's
also when you have so many going on, you're trying to deal with those using emotion without logic. And so the emotion just really drags you down and you have no logic attached to it at all. So by doing these processes, now you can start bringing some logic in, which elevates some of that emotion. Because once you start breaking it down and you realize the simplicity of it and you think, oh, why didn't I do this before? That was so easy.
right. Yeah.
But
It's
because you're
always that
trying to
way.
deal with things, yeah, but because you're trying to deal with things in such a an emotional state, you're never going to be able to do it logically.
Right.
It's just going to be a full reactive emotional driving force
Hmm.
saying, no, too much, too much, too much to handle. This is, you know, and just that tiniest little bit of logic, if you can force yourself to bring a tiny little bit of logic in, then you start to see something different. And then you start to realize how silly you've been.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's almost as if you've never done it before with every one of them, right at the beginning of it.
It's incredible.
You know,
Yeah,
it
it's
is. It
incredible.
just has that same feeling. It's like, oh, this is unconfrontable. This problem.
Yeah,
And that sudden shift of
yeah,
attention right at the beginning of it. Oh, okay, okay. And then, but then you look at the next problem. You're like, oh, that sudden shift of attention. Oh, this
yeah.
problem.
That's right.
It's
That's
as if
right.
it never
That's
happened
right.
before. And it's like,
Yeah,
hang on a
yeah,
minute here. Hang on. But then after you do a few of those, and you're like, oh, this big problem. For some reason, the big problem deflates, and then okay, I can do this. All right, yeah, okay.
yeah, yeah.
That's all you got to do.
I do have to. I do have to admit, though, um, I think once you realize that you can solve problems, you can come a bit arrogant to some of your problems as well. It can kind of go the other way,
Hmm.
where the problems are still there, and sure, they may not be driving you emotionally, but they're still there and they're still dragging you down somehow. And so you go through this process and you smash out so many things and you're on your way and then, oh yeah, I'll put that in the tomorrow basket. Oh, I'll put that in the next week basket. So you can create an over logical basket as well of things to handle too
Hmm.
that have no emotion in them,
Right.
like the other end of the spectrum, but
Hmm.
there's still present time problems affecting you.
Yeah. Yeah. You can put them in a different light,
Uh,
and
yeah,
and then that light would probably be procrastination, or I'll hold my
yes.
beer. But you have to approach it from the
Mm.
viewpoint, am I just not ising this, and is that what that is? And when you do, and you spot it, then you get the source off of it, as far as what your consideration is, because the consideration is senior to the physical universe. Then all of a sudden you start to get it in the right light, but you have to sit there and be honest with yourself
Yeah,
about it.
that's right. That's right. So I think the overall answer is if you've got some present time problems, resolve them. Whether you're okay with them logically, whether you're not okay with them emotionally, the trick is to deal with all of them.
Yeah, smaller to bigger.
Yep.
Get some
Yep.
help yourself out by handling it on a gradient, and then you'll find that you can handle the other bigger ones, and then you'll start providing solutions for yourself once you diffuse a few of those and the flows start flowing in. That's what happens, is you open the flow,
Yep.
because you're disarming some of these counter flows by handling the ones that you can comfortably face. I mean, that's the way Dianetics works. Find an incident you can comfortably face,
Mm.
and that works.
Yep. Yep.
Even if you have to approach it from the
Yep.
standpoint of victim, it still gets the job done. And then you go from there, and then you find
Yeah.
out, oh, I am a cause, and you got it whipped.
Mm.
Well, I
And
hope
and
this has
it's
been.
interesting as well.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to add one more thing,
Hmm.
but it's interesting as well, like that self discovery and that self doing around your present time problems has a bigger impact than you think because not only do you see other people struggling with the same things that you once struggled with once you resolve it, but
Hmm.
your patience with other people and your understanding with other people grows significantly as well, which in turn automatically makes you less reactive to other people's situations as well, because
That's
you
right.
now have a much greater understanding, and it just has this incredible, I don't know if you'd call it patience, probably more just understanding. I think understanding for people around you as well that might really be struggling. And the interesting thing is, so many of us face very similar present time problems that you can almost spot it physically on other people what their issues may be or what their present time problems may be. It's really interesting how certain things impact our physical bodies in very similar ways where it can
Hmm.
become observable,
Yeah, yeah.
very observable.
To the degree you grant yourself beingness is to the degree that you can grant others beingness.
Yeah. And if you've got a whole heap of present time problems running on, it's going to be really, really hard to grant other people their
Beingness.
beingness.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And you find your ability to create is a lot lower with present time problems. And you get those out of the way. To the degree that you can be creative is to the degree that your present time problems are non-existent.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
That's
a
right.
good that's a keeper there. If you don't
Yeah.
feel creative, you got present time problems. Look, do what we've been talking
Yeah.
about here in the podcast. If you can't get in session, and you can solve it by handling the little ones
Yeah.
first, and then you'll start to feel yourself being more creative. You can grant yourself beingness because you're being a cause over these things, and then you find yourself it's a lot easier for you to grant others beingness as well.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Well, I hope this has helped everybody out, kind of dissecting the sudden shift of attention and present time problems and problems of long duration. And take it to heart and make your life a lot simpler, and always approach problems on a gradient and handle the little ones first,
Mm.
and get one leg over the fence and get the other leg over the fence, and have some compassion for yourself, and don't beat yourself up so much, because we all tend to do that, and it's not
Yes, we
good for
do.
you. You know,
No, it's not.
you you are your best
It's
friend.
terrible.
Don't be your own worst critic. Be your own best friend. Grant yourself some beingness, and you'll find that others grant you more beingness as well too when you grant them beingness. So for Arthur and I,
Yeah, that's right.
we hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you for another one in a day or two. Take care. Namaste, and we love you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.